Hey there, creepy peeps. Coming at you from a slightly different angle today, only because I didn't move my setup over here like I normally do. Anyways, this video is going to be another tier ranking video. I haven't done one of these in so long, but I was inspired because at the end of 2023, your girl became an aunt. So I feel like I need to prepare myself to be like the coolest aunt ever. Obviously, I'm taking it upon myself to make sure my niece loves books and even just likes creepy things. She doesn't have to be a horror fan. It would be great if she was. Thought I would ask AI. I know I'm doing one of those. I asked specifically for like spooky movies that are kid appropriate. That was what I asked. And it gave me a list of movies and I took the ones that I've seen. So I'm going to judge them based on like how well they've held up, like effects wise, like do they look super dated or do they look still really good, and how it holds up as like an introduction to horror movies. So like the scary factor of it, like is it scary, are there scary moments in it? Obviously this is all just my opinion anyway, and it's not necessarily my personal preference. We'll get into it in the video, but as I rank them, it's like my personal preference versus the criteria I gave myself would be a different kind of tier ranking list. So without further ado, let's begin. I feel like this is already looking at the choices. Some of these are going to make y'all mad where I put these. I can tell already. Okay, so these are in no particular order. I just threw them all into here so I could rank them. So I guess first we're talking about A Series of Unfortunate Events. The movie starring Jim Carrey. Okay, I guess. Oh, that one's kind of tricky. That I was surprised to see that one on here. There was like one or two that I was surprised to see recommended as kid friendly. Not that this isn't kid friendly. I mean, it's kind of spooky. I feel like the atmosphere is very spooky, but in terms of like introduction to horror type spooky, I don't think this is giving. I'm gonna put it, ooh, I don't know. I feel like it's got to be like down here. I like the movie. I watched it a lot when I was a kid. Yeah, I feel like in terms of introduction to horror, it's not the best option. Okay, so next one, The Witches. This one's gonna make people mad, I think, where I put it. I did not watch this movie as a kid. It was just I don't know. I don't know why. Like as far as I can remember being a kid, I don't even know that I was aware that this movie existed. You know what I mean? It just was not on my radar for whatever reason. And it wasn't out of the Roald Dahl books that I read as a kid. This was also not one of them. I did not read this book as a kid. So I think I missed the opportunity to have this be like a nostalgic pick for me. But I feel like this is probably a little bit closer to like a good introduction to horror though, because the transformation sequence is pretty scary and the witches are pretty horrifying. The fact that like the kid gets turned into a mouse, that's pretty scary as well. I think we're getting there. I don't think it's the best we can do though. So I'm gonna put this on the mid. I feel like everybody just started typing right now. This is gonna be another one. I think people are gonna be maybe disappointed where I put it. I don't know. This one, okay. This one is definitely way closer than the other two. I think introduction to horror because you're getting an introduction to like your kind of main cast of horror movie monsters, right? That's like the whole point of the movie. And I think it's more or less held up. There are some effects in there that I feel like are kind of like, I think this one's would be good for like a slightly older kid. It's got its fair share of adult jokes in there, that's for sure. That's true of like almost every single movie on this list, though, I think. I think that's just by design. I've only seen this movie a handful of times. Again, this is one that I didn't grow up watching either. And I know a lot of people have a lot of love for this movie. I don't know that it was made for kids necessarily though. Just because it has a main cast of kids, like that's our protagonist. I don't know. I think I would put this on a B tier for me. Yeah. Okay, now we're getting into the my bread and butter here. Nightmare Before Christmas. Now this isn't like Halloween movies specifically. I'm just talking spooky movies, which I think this fits. I know there's a whole argument as to whether this is a Christmas movie or it's a Halloween movie. Please sound off in the comments which you think it is. or if you're like me and you fall into the maybe lesser heard camp of like it's an everything movie. Like I watch it for Halloween and I watch it for Christmas. It's a great like in between movie as well. It's just an excuse to watch this a million times at the end of the year. This one, spooky vibes, obviously there because it mostly takes place in Halloween Town. But like the atmosphere is there. The townspeople of Halloween Town are pretty creepy looking. And obviously, you kind of have a lot of familiar monsters. And I think the rewatchability is there. It's a very seasonal movie. The animation style has held up. You're going to see in this video how biased I am towards this kind of like animation style. I think it holds up. I think it holds up so well. I'm not a child anymore, but I firmly believe that you could show this to a kid and have them guess what year it came out. And I don't think they would think that this is an old movie. Like it just holds up. It looks great. So in terms of like introduction to like horror and spooky things, this is God tier. It's God tier. All right, next. I was surprised to see this one actually come up. This is another one because I feel like this one is so old and honestly really dated. This was like my like yearly, like as a little kid, as much as I could be like, I have a list of movies I watch every October. The Little Vampire was definitely on there. I watched this movie so many times. I thought it was so much fun. I haven't rewatched it in a while, and I kind of want to now that it like came back up into my radar. Like I haven't thought about this movie in so long. I loved the whole style of the family of vampires. They looked like so eclectic and cool. Like their like the costume design and the makeup design was so cool. I really need to rewatch it again because I feel like it probably does not hold up. But it was so much fun. And I feel like there were some like appropriately scary moments. And this it wasn't horrifying, but like scary to like a little kid. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I mean, introduction to vampires, that's a great. I was kind of dancing between D as well, but I think the fact that at least it's like your typical kind of horror movie monster or vampire, I think that has to put it up just a little bit more. Also, not really my favorite, the Haunted Mansion. I've never been a Haunted Mansion girly. It's just not my bag. Is pretty spooky. I feel like if we're talking like this particular Haunted Mansion movie, which I went for very specific things. So we're talking about the 2003 Haunted Mansion. The spookiness is there. I mean, it's all about a haunted house. We rewatched this like kind of recently on my Patreon for a movie night. The effects don't necessarily hold up anymore. It's a little bit dated now that it's 20 years old now already. But another like I think okay introduction to horror. It's a haunted house story. I'm gonna put it with B. I'm not like super jazzed about it. I feel like I'm very much concentrated on these. Okay, next suggestion I got was the Addams Family. Obviously, I have a huge soft spot for the Addams Family. I fucking love the Addams Family so much. I think these movies are so much fun. I'm kind of including Addams Family values along with this as well. I didn't give it its own poster here, only because I feel like I'm going to put them in the same spot no matter what. So just let it be understood. I'm talking about the Addams Family and Addams Family values. So creepy. So fun. I wouldn't necessarily say these are scary though. I think this is a good introduction to kind of like the creepy fun territory, but not necessarily maybe a good introduction to horror because they're not really scary. And I think like as I watched these as a kid, I didn't fully grasp the way that like Wednesday and Pugsley like played with each other, that how sinister it is. Like as an adult, when I'm like, oh, she's trying to electrocute her brother. Like they're gonna drop the baby off the roof and like what that means. I think you got to be a little bit older to kind of like grasp the fact that the Addams Family is like it's like they're supposed to be just like everybody else, but they're kind of not. You know what I mean? There's not necessarily something supernatural going on, but the way the events play out, it's like almost kind of like there's something supernatural going on where they can play this way and not die. I think that's just like the comedy of the movie. So I think you have to be a little bit older maybe to understand that. I don't like my heart wants to put it in God tier. I don't think as if we're judging it based on being an introduction to horror, I don't think it's the best choice. I think it's great for the creepy vibes though, and I think it's like essential. I think it's just essential movie viewing, period. Oh no, but where to put it? I don't want to put it like it would break my heart to put it like down here. I don't think it's like a worse choice than like, oh, I guess I gotta put it in C. That hurts me. That hurts me. Like it belongs here. Just know that like if this was just like personal preference, it belongs here. Or if it was just like essential movie viewing, it belongs here. But if we're talking introduction to horror, it's not that scary. It's not that scary. Oh, it's not that scary. I think like The Witches is more scary. Like if we're talking about like horrific events, oh no, I think it belongs here. I'm gonna be thinking about that all day. Another, I think, just essential Scooby-Doo, Adam's Family, Scooby-Doo. I think those are properties that everybody needs to know. To be a functioning member of society, I think you need to know who the Adams Family are, and I think you need to know who Mystery Inc. are. It's definitely a little scary. The show, I think, is a lot more scary, even though it gets revealed, at the end of every episode, it's just a man in a mask. But there's ghosts, there's zombies, there's all sorts of monsters. The movie's kind of not that scary. I think the tagline's very like, be afraid, be kind of afraid. I think the horror of it is a little bit older in age. Like the idea of kind of like being possessed and the people you like your friends not being who like not being themselves. I think that's more of kind of like an existential kind of fear. I don't think that's straight up like, oh, there's a monster. I can see the monster. The monster is coming at me. Kind of scary, which I feel like is a bit more simple. That and I don't know. I don't if I put myself in it's hard to like think of like kids nowadays with like them growing up with the technology that they have because I didn't have that experience. I feel like kids might think this is kind of dated, although Scooby still looks pretty good. It still looks okay. It's not the worst. It's not the worst yet. I also feel like there's kind of like there has to be like some sort of knowledge of Scooby Doo already to kind of get this. But I would imagine, like, I don't know, show your kids the Scooby Doo commercial. I'm not here to tell you how to raise your kids, except show them the Scooby Doo cartoon. Did I just say commercial? I meant cartoon. But it's also not that scary. It's more mystery solving than anything. So I think it kind of belongs on the same level as Lemony Snicket, where it's a bit more like we're solving a mystery. That really hurts my heart as well. Okay, now we're getting back to again my bread and butter. This animation style. I love Studios. They do great work. ParaNorman. I think a great introduction to horror. You got zombies, witches, ghosts, and I just love this movie so much. I think this is so fun. I think it is pretty scary as well. I think the zombie, like townspeople are a little bit goofy and funny. I don't necessarily think they're pretty scary. I think once it gets more towards the end of the movie and we're learning the story about the little witch girl who's causing all of this to happen, there are some moments like I just keep thinking of if I can find the image, I'll put it up or the clip of it's like something I think it's like when she's no, not when she's telling her story. I think when she's getting like really angry or something. And there's part of the movie where it's like kind of like black and white and her hair is kind of like all out around her head. That's like honestly kind of really scary to me. There's something about that that like is like deeply unsettling, I think, with the animation style. But I think like as a kid, like that scene in particular, I think would have like really scared me. There's just something about it. I think this is a great introduction to horror. And once again, the animation style, I think it holds up. Again, I think you could show this to a kid now. I don't think they would know what year this came out. I think you could convince them it's a modern movie. Slightly different animation style here. Monster House. Another one I love, honestly. I love Monster House. I think Monster House is so fun. Pretty scary. I think it's like a good kind of twist on a haunted house story. I think that's fun. The animation style is not quite on the same level as like the stop motion kind of puppetry stuff you have going on with Paranorman and Nightmare Before Christmas. So I think I don't know, it's like somewhere kind of in between though, like where it almost kind of evokes that style, but it's definitely not that. It's more computer generated. So it looks kind of starting to look a little dated. I think as time goes on, it's going to look more and more dated, but I think the story's fun. And I think it is appropriately pretty scary. And like both in a real sense and in a like supernatural sense. Like, yeah, that this is gonna sound so bad, but I think everyone can relate to this. Like as a kid, like sometimes old people are scary, especially like an old person that you don't know, that's like not like your grandparents or like an aunt or an uncle or something like that you know. Especially because like I feel like as you get older, like I feel like old people just like don't give a fuck anymore, so they'll be like grumpy and curmudgeony to you and not really care. And I think there's something kind of frightening about that as a kid. So I think in a real sense, this is kind of scary, like them being afraid of their neighbor. And then there's the supernatural aspect of the house is alive and the house is like eating people and eating things. So I think that's pretty appropriately scary. I don't think it holds up super well anymore, but I think this just goes in the eighth spot. I'm gonna put that in the A. It's feeling kind of empty up there. I really, just looking at the rest of them, I don't know that I'm gonna put anything down here, which is interesting. Okay. Next, love of my life, light of my life. I fucking love Hocus Pocus so much. This is one again. If this was like, this is essential viewing. This is essential viewing. Just period, point blank. Everyone should watch this movie. It's got everything. Great for Halloween time, of course. Obviously, I think it's a bit more of a holiday movie than like a horror movie. Is it scary? I don't know that I ever found that. I mean, I'm just judging it based on my own experience. I don't know that I ever found this movie scary. Like maybe Billy is a little scary. I feel like he's a little bit cartoony though in the movie. It's not like like a gore and pus and gross kind of zombie. He's just a kind of a very cartoony zombie. Although, I don't know, it's got like, I think because it's got the Halloween elements, I think that gives it a leg up. I think I'd put this in A. Not really scary, but I think a good kind of introduction to that. I think it's just essential viewing. Okay, next. The Goosebumps movie. I've only seen this once, so just keep that in mind as I judge this movie. I don't remember a lot about it. I also think this is kind of similar to Scooby Doo in the sense that I think you almost kind of need, I think, the prior knowledge of the Goosebumps show to really appreciate what's going on in the movie. I feel like I remember there being a lot of CGI in this. I don't know if that necessarily holds up, but this is definitely a more like, I say kid friendly version of Goosebumps. Goosebumps has always been like supposed to be like kid friendly horror. That was like the whole point. The books are middle grade, young reader books. They're not, they're meant for kids. So in that sense, I feel like it belongs on the top. I don't necessarily know that it holds up though with the effects and things like that. I feel like to really capture that magic in showing this to a showing this to a kid. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of just assuming that the kids of today are going to be more well. I don't want to say like visual literacy wise like well versed. I don't necessarily know that's true, but I feel like with technology where it is now, like as they're growing up, I feel like I'm already kind of assuming they're gonna look at something like this or like Scooby Doo or something like that and be like, this looks terrible. Like, what the hell is this? Maybe I'm just projecting. I don't know. I think because it's Goosebumps, it's automatically like an A tier or above because it's literally the purpose of Goosebumps. And I did see somewhere, I can't remember where I saw this. It was like, I don't know, it was an article or something mentioning like Jack Black is like is going to be this generation's Vincent Price or something, which I thought was kind of funny. And I'm like, I get that. Like, I feel like I get that. Ooh, A? I think if you do it right and you show them the show as well, I think it could be God tier. My personal preference is to put it down here. I think that's what I'm going to do. All right, next. Another one I was kind of surprised at, Ghostbusters, which I don't know. I guess I was just surprised it was recommending such old movies like Ghostbusters and Monster Squad. I know that hurts everybody. They're old now. They're like 40 years old. Oh my God. I still feel like Ghostbusters is only 20 years old. This is, I think, definitely a little bit more for like older kids. I think to like really kind of appreciate it. I don't know that like a little kid's gonna really necessarily be engaged with this because there's a lot of talking in this movie. There's a whole like storyline with, like Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver and the things going on in the apartment building before you really get to like the ghosts and things like that. Like it kind of it's I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that this would be super interesting to kids anymore. Not littler kids, I guess. They're fighting ghosts and kind of like demons in a sense. It's not just ghosts. I know they keep calling them ghosts because it's Ghostbusters, but the whole little like demon dog thing going on that like possesses Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver in the movie. That's kind of scary, especially Rick Moranis's character, how he gets like chased through the streets and the whole like scene where he like bangs on the glass like asking people to help him, the thing like attacks him and possess him. I think that that's pretty scary. I always found that pretty scary, although honestly doesn't hold up. Like the animation of those, I just call them demons, I think they're demons running, does not hold up anymore. I think when they're not moving so much, they look great. But overall, I don't know that it's that scary either. Aside from like that one scene that I just talked about is kind of scary. Maybe the scene where Sigourney Weaver gets possessed is kind of scary too. I don't know. My heart is telling me to put it on the B tier. B for bust in ghosts. Okay, we're coming up to the end here. We got a couple more left. Next, I mean, I knew this was going to be on here. Ernest Scared Stupid. I watched this for the first time maybe like last year, I think, with my Patreons. I was never an Ernest girly either. I haven't seen any other Ernest anything besides this one. I guess kind of scary. I'm just trying to keep it based on my criteria because, like, personal preference, I feel like I'd put it down here. I watched it for the first time as an adult. It was endearing, but I was just like, okay. I feel like this is something like if you didn't watch it as a kid, you'd probably just feel the same way. You're kind of like, this is good for what it was. If I was a kid and I saw this, I would have loved it. But somehow I didn't. For some reason, Ernest was also never on my radar. It was just something I don't know. I just didn't know it existed. Don't know why. The kids are getting, what's happening to the kids in the movie? Are they getting like turned into something? Oh, everyone's like yelling at the screen for me now. Hey, I feel like they're getting turned into something, which is always pretty scary, I think, as a kid. Obviously, I think this is more like meant to be like lighthearted Halloween fun for kids. Ernest, the whole thing is he's kind of like a bumbling idiot, and that's like the comedy of it. I think it's more silly than anything than scary. I'm trying to differentiate. I feel like there is kind of a difference between like these fun Halloween movies and like movies that I think would be an introduction to horror. And even though like the horror community loves Halloween and that's our time of year, I feel like they don't necessarily go hand in hand in this scenario. Like you can have a Halloween movie, but it's just a straight up fun like movie that takes place around Halloween time. And then there's like Halloween horror movies. I feel like when we're talking about like things I would show to a child, like let a child watch. Next, Casper. Again, one, honestly, I don't think kids would like this. I think the CGI, look at him. He already looks dated. I'm so sorry, Casper. I love you so much. My guy, my ghost. I I feel like I don't know. Maybe I might just be projecting though. I might just be projecting that kids would be so judgy of this. I don't know. I think it's like a self conscious thing almost too, because it's like I feel like if I was showing, like if I put myself in the scenario, like I was showing my niece a movie that I really loved, it's like I want her to love it as well. So I feel like there's like a self consciousness in there that like, well, kids aren't gonna like this because it looks bad, and I'm kind of just protecting my heart a little bit. But where to put you? I feel like with ghosts, that's a good kind of introduction to horror. It's a haunted house story at its core. I haven't watched it in a while though. I feel like it wasn't necessarily that scary. I feel like there were some elements. You do have like bad ghosts, and then Casper, who's a friendly ghost. Obviously, that's this whole thing. But it doesn't hold up. I don't think. Oh, where to put it? I feel like B. I'm hovering around B or C. I think the lack of scary elements has got to put it down here. I don't think it's that scary. Okay. Okay, this one, as much as I love this movie, was really surprised to see this one recommended. Beetle Juice. I feel like this is an adult movie. I feel like there's so many like adult jokes or kind of like smart and clever jokes that I think would just go over a kid's head. But I watched this as a kid, and I'm not saying like I was the smartest kid out there and I understood all the jokes. I think it was just entertaining for me to watch because there's a lot going on in this movie. I think it I think it holds up. It's just a lot of practical effects that don't look terrible. I think it holds up. I think there's a lot. I think most of the jokes and dialogue and stuff is probably a little much for a kid. I don't think they're necessarily like if you're showing this to them, it's with the understanding that they're really not going to understand what's going on. It's just going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of loud noises and fun music and things like that, and that's going to be entertaining in and of itself. I think it is kind of unsettling to watch, like especially like when the um the Maitlands, like when they transform themselves. That's kind of like I know it's like we watch it, it's kind of funny now, but it's kind of disturbing, like the way they like manipulate their faces and stuff. That's kind of disturbing. The seance scene always kind of scared me a lot. Like watching them like age like the way that they did, and they're literally like deteriorating and falling apart. That always kind of scared me. And the officiant of the wedding. It was the hollow eye sockets. That's I don't know, it scared me a lot. As a kid, I did not like him. He was really scary to me. I feel like there are some good elements of fear in here. The snake scene also is pretty scary. I don't think it's for a kid though. I don't know that it's necessarily God tier. I don't know if I want to put it up here and it's just my own personal preference kind of like leaking through. Second to last one, Corpse Bride. Okay, so that we already know Vicky's thought process, the animation style, I feel like already we're starting at S tier. So is it just a matter of does it stay there or does it drop because of other factors? Obviously, it's creepy in the fact that we're talking about the underworld. There's a lot of dead things, people. She's a whole zombie. It's a thing. Is this a good introduction to horror? Is it that? I feel like creepy and scary are two different things though. Like I feel like this is creepy, but there's not necessarily scenes that I feel like that are pretty scary. Ooh. Ooh. Again, can I just like bloop? You know what? I'm gonna put it up here. I don't know why. It just came over me. It's going there. Last one. I already know where this one is going. Coraline. Once again, like a studio. That animation holds the fuck up. It is scary. The Beldam is scary. The whole like the even when she's just like posing as the mother, the button eyes are really unsettling. You're kind of distracted as a kid by like, ooh, all this food and all this fun stuff. But it's really unsettling. And then when she transforms and she's like that spidery creature, she's fucking scary, okay? The Beldam is scary. I I think this is a great introduction to horror. The fact that Coraline has to do everything by herself, that's scary as a kid. I think that belongs in God tier. I don't know how I feel about this. If I had my way, like at least half of these would have gone straight to the God tier. Like Adam's Family, Scooby-Doo, um, Hocus Pocus, Monster House, Beetlejuice, all would go in God tier. Where it's like I just think these are good, creepy movies to show to a kid. I tried to focus myself to like an introduction to horror. I feel like any of these would be like if you enjoy the creepy kind of aspects of it, you're more likely to enjoy horror movies, probably. Maybe. I don't know. Kids are weird. I don't know how kids work. I'm sure you guys are going to have opinions on where I ranked these. If you have any that wasn't included, again, I got these from Chat GPT. Let me know what they are in the comments and where you would rank them, or if you would rank these differently, or you have different arguments for them, let me know. There you have it. Those are the movies I think would be great introductions to horror, but kid appropriate for varying ages. I found out as I was making this video. If you liked this video, I recently did a video talking about Coraline specifically, like the movie versus the book. I still love revisiting these older creepy movies that I watched when I was a lot younger. You should check that out. And I will see you on Tuesday with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.